Hello and welcome. Today I wanted to share my technique and process for making this hardcover book into a journal. This one specifically will be an art journal for me. You can use the same idea to make a junk journal if you'd like. I like to use a lot of vintage books, but I had this more of a modern day book, and I'm removing the inside so I will later put in some mixed media paper, because in my art journals I usually use a lot of paint and things like that, so they get I need some thick good paper. So I'm going to keep the spine on this book. Depends on if you like the width of the spine or not. I'm trying to trim off the extra paper that's there. And I decided to cover my cover with some white gesso. I had this idea that turned out fine. I like it, but it wasn't exactly what I thought it would look like, and that's okay because I just kind of had a vague idea actually, and most of my mixed media projects turn out a little differently, if I even have a plan. So my idea was to lay down this old book page paper with I use matte medium for that, and then put some cheesecloth over the top of that so that the book pages kind of showed a little bit at the through the cheesecloth is what I'm trying to say. But they didn't really show through in the end, but I still like the effect anyway. And what my idea was to create an opening in the cheesecloth to show that image, which is a picture of a famous Monet painting. I think it's Monet. Gosh, I'm pretty sure it is. I should have checked on that before I start talking about it. It came from a calendar of beautiful images from museums, different art pieces. I've used some in the past to make journals because of course they're beautiful because they're all made by famous artists. And sorry for the glare there. Later on I try to fix that a little bit, but with the images from that calendar are kind of glossy. So I'm using this white cheesecloth that I just got at the grocery store, but it's a little thin, as you can see. There are different types of cheesecloth, and so with this one it's thinner than I usually use, to be honest, but it also works fine. So there's my idea of how I'm going to spread out the cheesecloth and the image. I'm going to use the jar to my right there that I showed you a little while ago, and it's gel medium. It's like the matte medium I used before, but it's not as fluid. It's thicker, and I thought it would hold the image, which is somewhat thick, not super thick, but it's not a thin piece of paper. I thought it would hold that and the cheesecloth down a lot better than the very fluid matte medium, if that makes sense. If you have another glue that's thick like this, you could certainly use that. I like this one too because it dries clear, so that's important for my project. And I'm doing half at a time so that my gel medium doesn't dry. And I pressed that down with a piece of paper towel so I wouldn't make a mess. I decided to use some matte medium over the top of the image to kind of protect it, and you'll see why later. Spreading it with a palette knife actually creates the look of like a painterly look, sort of. So I kind of like that effect too. Again, you can't really see it that well with the glare, but you'll see it better later. So I'm spreading out my cheesecloth. I cut that opening for the image down, and it's not perfect. I don't mean it to be perfect. I've said this many times, almost every video. Nothing I make is perfect. I don't strive for perfection anyway. I really like things kind of wonky and you know, just, I don't know, it's not an unpleasing look, but it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, so I did that half, and then I'm going to do the other half the same way. Spread my gel medium if I need more. As you can see there, I'm spreading it a little more, and you can spread it on top as well, and especially since that cheesecloth is so thin, it works fine. So I'm going to spread that out, and then I am going to, I can't remember if I let it dry first, but then I do let it dry, of course, but I also trim the extra cheesecloth there. You could always wrap it to the inside and leave it that way, but I chose to trim it down a bit. There is quite a bit of excess. Whenever you're covering a book, a hardcover book like this, you do want to focus on that spine where it bends there, as you can see. That's important, that whatever you glue down is glued down well in those spots. So there you can see I did let it dry really well, and then I'm trimming it. I think I let it dry really well. Sometimes I don't always let things dry as much as I should. Okay, so I trimmed that down, but I think I am going to wrap the extra around, just a little bit of extra around to the inside. And that will all be covered up on the inside, as you'll see, so it's not really even going to show. All right, my next step is I'm going to use some masking tape on the spine just to strengthen it a little bit. Sometimes I add a thin piece of cardboard into that spine area to strengthen it. In this case, I didn't feel like it needed it, but if you have a really thin spine, you could do that. I'm gluing down that extra paper there that I wasn't really able to trim as closely as I wanted to because I was afraid I would cut into the spine with my scissors because I really didn't want to damage my spine. I'm using the gel medium to attach my masking tape because it just happens to be next to me. You could also use any type of glue to do that. I always use extra glue with tapes because I don't want the tape to come off. I don't have to be extremely precise with cutting that tape because that's all going to be covered up. But I do want to make sure it stays down, it's glued down well. Pressing that down, and again emphasizing those areas where the covers bend. I'm going to let that dry really well, and now work on my cover a bit more. So I was thinking about using that blue color, but I found it handy to prop up my book cover so you won't see the glare. So I'm showing you the colors that I'm thinking of using on the cover. You can still, even with the gesso and everything, you can still see a little bit of red peeking through, but I'm going to cover all that up. And I decided to start with a base layer of an off-white color. It's called Titan Buff by Golden, and I love that color. It's a great kind of, I don't know, it's a great color all around. Base layer, over the top of things, everything. There you can see what it looks like. So now I'm going to start, I put some paints out on a little plastic plate there to just start tapping around different colors. I wanted to have the color be a strong blue color because of my image on the front, and also I didn't mention this before, but it's this project is in response to the prompt for the Mixed Media Emporium Facebook group that I took over earlier this year. The prompt, the first week of each month, is a color challenge prompt, which is a lot of fun. I pick a color, and then your project should reflect that color predominantly in your project. Now, it doesn't have to be the only color in your project, because I use other colors, but it's a strong blue. As you can guess, the color for this prompt this week is blue. So, a personal favorite of mine too. I love blue. But I didn't want that to be the only color. So I'm adding a little bit of yellow in there. I also took out some brown, which you see there on my plate. I just put colors out that I thought I might use and just use a sponge to apply them kind of here and there. I'm not overthinking it. I kind of thought I would achieve an impressionist effect, sort of. It looks, honestly, I know it looks a bit of a hot mess right now, but hang in there. It gets better. And I really like the end result. For me personally, you could accomplish this same idea by just putting, one color on your cover if you wanted to. That would look fine too. Whatever you prefer. So you can see that now pretty much I've covered up the book pages. You can't really see those anymore, and that's okay too. One of the things I really like about mixed media is that, for me anyway, I get some unexpected results, but I'm always happy with the end result, almost always. I just keep going. That's the thing about mixed media. You just keep adding layers until you're happy with your project. So now I am trying to tone this down with white. I end up adding a lot of white because I realize my background is a bit crazy, I guess. And now you can see I have a little wet wipe next to me, because if I get any extra paint on that image, the focal image on the cover, I can wipe it off quickly before the paint dries. Because I put a layer of matte medium on it to protect it. If I hadn't done that, the paint would be, have soaked into the paper pretty quickly, and it would have been harder to remove, if not impossible. So that's another reason why I did that. And I'm just, making a mess, having fun. I'm adding a lot of white and covering things up. I'm going to go back in with blue after this. Some of my blue there isn't dry, so it's kind of mixing with the white, so I had to stop in that area and go to another area. Okay, that's what my cover looks like so far. I don't know why, but I had this idea to spread that white paint with the palette knife, and I really like the way that looks too. You can see a bit of the yellow underneath. I like that, but it's not crazy or overpowering. I'm going to do that over the entire front cover. Being careful not to get it on my image, or if I do, I wipe it up very quickly. So continuing with my white, I thought I had taken some of this out, but I guess I'm going to show you the whole process. And after I added this white, I decided I did need a touch more yellow. So you'll see that in just a moment. Okay, finishing up with my white, I promise. So again, with mixed media, it's really a process of continuing until you like your result, and experimenting sometimes, to get there. So again, a touch of yellow here and there. I'm wiping it back a little bit because, again, I don't want it to be too strong. Here you can see how that turned out. I did add a bit more blue. I started dabbing that on with my finger, like the yellow. I thought I was recording, but I wasn't. So now I'm going to make a frame of sorts around my image with that gold paint. I love adding a bit of gold to a lot of my projects, that shininess. I love the way that looks. So you can see how that turned out. I like it. It's almost like a frame in a museum, and I do that around the edges and by the spine area too. So I really am happy with the way that looks now. So I decided I wanted to add a little plaque of some kind. That one says art. I've had it for a really long time and I just can't even remember where I got it. I added a little bit of gold paint to the top of it because it was more like a brass color, and that looks really nice. In the video I don't think it shows up that great, but in real life it looks nice. So what I'm going to do is use my awl to punch the holes so I can insert the brads, and that works well for me. I don't know what else to say about that. In a minute you'll see how I'm doing that. It's, I mean, pretty straightforward. I'm going to cover up the inside cover and cover up where those brads are on the inside, but I do glue all this in with, switch to Fabri-Tac glue, which I find works really well with all types of items like fabrics and other items, but I guess I wasn't recording that part because I didn't really show it. So there's how it looks with the little plaque attached. I love the way that cover turned out. I'm going to cut down some scrapbook paper. Since my cover is kind of busy, I wanted something not so busy on the inside, so that's a light blue scrapbook paper. It's like a sort of thicker scrapbook paper that will cover up the brads and they won't even show at all. I'm going to glue those in like that as I'm showing you, and I'm going to use some fabric on the spine. Again, a low-key fabric that won't be too busy to compete with the front cover. I'm going to tear that to the approximate size. There are two ways you can attach fabric. You can put it over the top of the scrapbook paper like that and glue it down, or you can attach the fabric first and then glue down your paper, which is what I'm going to do. I do it either way. It just depends on my feelings of the day, I guess. So I have some torn edges. That's the look that I like. You could do a clean edge if you want to. I can't remember why I trimmed that down. Maybe it was just a little bit too long. I don't know. I don't mind that fuzzy stuff sticking out a little bit at the top and the bottom. So that's what it's going to look like. I glued down the fabric first. It's a fairly thick fabric, not super thin. See, I'm adding a few more little fringes with my scissors. Anyway, it's not a super thick fabric, but it's not super thin either. So I'm going to use my Fabri-Tac glue. If I was using a really thin fabric, I usually just use my glue stick because that works well. And if you use the Fabri-Tac on a thin fabric, it seeps through and I don't think it looks that good. But I have also sometimes used matte medium to glue down fabric, and I just put it on under and over the fabric. Kind of creates like a harder surface, if you know what I mean. So whatever you want to use, it's absolutely fine. I just want to make sure my fabric's glued down really well, especially those seams again where the covers open and close and at the spine area. You want that to be glued down really well so the fabric doesn't buckle and look ugly. I try to focus on that a lot because I've had it happen to me numerous times, the fabric buckling, because I didn't apply enough glue. So I want to make sure that's glued in well, and then I can go in and add more glue there to make sure the whole thing is glued down well. Hopefully I'm going to jump ahead a little bit to show you, not show you all my gluing. Okay, then I'm going to glue down the scrapbook paper on top of that. I won't be showing you how I put my sew my signatures in because I didn't want to make this video too long, and also because I've shown that before in other videos. It's a 3-hole pamphlet stitch. It's pretty easy, and you can always search that on YouTube if you don't know how to go about it. I am making a fairly small art journal because I have so many journals anyway. I don't need a big journal. And I used mixed media paper, so it's pretty thick. So I made my signatures with just, I can't remember now, 3 or 4 sheets. It wasn't very many, but it's just right because once I start adding layers of paint and other things in my book, it's going to thicken up. So there are my signatures. I've already gotten them ready, but I'm going to trim them down to fit inside my book. So I have 1, 2, 3. Okay, so each signature, just 2 signatures of 3 sheets each. Again, that doesn't seem like a lot, but it's not a very big book. So I'm going to trim that up, sew that into the journal, and this is how I measure things with my trusty pencil. I don't like using rulers. Oh, I ended up, I've forgotten, sorry, that I trimmed it with my ruler to have the torn edges. I forgot about that, and I really like that torn edge look. So that's how that looks. Make sure it fits nicely, and then I'm going to do the same thing at the top. And just mark it with my pencil, and then trim it up with my ruler. Leave a little bit of gap. I don't want my pages sticking out at the top. I might have other things sticking out later, like laces and other fabrics, but for now my paper will be just a little bit smaller than my covers. So that's how they look. I think they turned out nicely. I like the way that looks. And there's my finished project. I hope you like it. I really like the way it turned out, and I'm hoping to use my little book very soon. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.